Good advice. Possum's waiting. He's well away from the infirmary door, leaning back against one of the elm trees by the steps. Any survivors? He asks, walking forward to help as I struggle to pull my coat over my aching arm. I almost say no. I'm pretty sure that would get a laugh from him, but nothing seems funny right now. Not even the way he is scrunching up his face at me. Getting my hair hacked off and needles stabbed in me was no picnic. But the truly painful thing, for me, was answering questions about my family to someone as cold and uncaring as Mrs. Wilting. If that's what everyone's like here at this place, I'm ready to run away right now. I blink, fighting back the tears that are ready to flow like a river. Jaybird, Possum says. His voice is soft. He puts one arm around my shoulder. I know. When you first get here, it feels like the end of the world, right? I have to nod my naked head at that. But don't you worry, he says. From here on in, he pauses. From here on in, it just gets worse. That does make me laugh. Possum is laughing now, too. He leads me over to the elm tree and sits me down against it. Just breathe, he says. This old elm here's my favorite tree. It'll help you some. It's the sort of thing Pop would say. It does make me feel better as I lean my head against the rough bark and close my eyes. When I open my eyes again, Possum is still here. He's squatting down in front of me, his back turned, tossing bits of twig at a fallen leaf. I appreciate him doing that, giving me some space to recover while standing by to help if need be. I remember one of the 3 words Pop said to me. He only said it once, but it stuck in my mind like a burr caught on wool pants. I speak it slow so as to get it right. Muto. Holy cow, Possum says, turning his head around so far on his neck that he looks like an owl. So he can talk, yes, and talk Indian too. After all. I nod, then shake my head. I look down, running my right hand back over my prickly scalp. Yup, Possum says. Can't get you to shut up, can I? He favors me with that wide grin. Seriously, though, you always this quiet, Jaybird? It's a good question. And the answer is that I've never been overly talkative. Most times, I'd rather listen. However, over the last couple of days, I have been much more. What was that word I read in my dictionary? Taciturn? That's it. I've been taciturn ever since Pop sprung it on me that he was Creek Indian, which meant that I was sort of Indian too, and that he was leaving me at a new school, an Indian school, this Indian school. Possum is still waiting for my answer. It's hard to start talking, other than grunting out a word or two, when you've been silent for a while. But he deserves an answer. He doesn't even know me, but he has been acting like a real friend. Not that I've ever really had one. In all my years at old school, I never did find anyone I felt as close to as I'm feeling toward Possum just after meeting him. So instead of staying silent like I always used to do, I answer him. No, I say. I usually talk more. Jehoshaphat, Possum says. The seas are parting. 5 whole words in a row. I smile at him. I can do better than that, I say, counting off the words on my fingers for him. 6 this time. All right, Possum says, slapping my shoulder in a friendly way. I grit my teeth. That slap would have felt a whole lot friendlier if that was not the side where I had just had those inoculations. Oops, Possum says, seeing me wince. Forgot about that. It's okay, I reply. I stand up, sling my pack over my shoulder. Hold on, he says. Is that pack all you got? Yup, I say. What's in it? I slip off the pack and sit back down cross-legged with the tree at my back. I take everything out, place it on the ground between me and Possum, who squatted down to his heels. He pokes the 3 books, Bullfinch, Dictionary, London's novel with his fingers. Then he picks up The Call of the Wild. This a good one? He asks. Real good. Can I borrow it? Library here ain't worth an owl's hoot. It's yours, I say. I read it 3 times. His right eye twitches when I say that, which makes the scar on his cheek stand out more. What I just said surprised him, me offering that book. To be honest, I've surprised myself. Just a few days ago, I never could have imagined myself parting with one of those books. But things are different now. Maybe I'm even different myself, and I can tell just how much having that book would mean to Possum. So I am okay, for certain, with letting it go. Really? You sure? He says. Ehi, I say. You might not know it to look at me, Possum says, but I love reading adventure stories. There aren't many in our library. It seems as if when I am reading such, that I'm no longer here. Like me, I think. The last time I read The Call of the Wild was just after Pop and I took to the road, and I was missing Mom real bad. But reading it every night for a week straight helped me out of that sadness. He looks up at me. Ever read that Treasure Island book? I nod and hold up 4 fingers. Possum chuckles. I read it twice before it disappeared from the library here. Wasn't a student took it. The old superintendent figured it was giving us boys the ideas about running away and all that. He picks up the book with both hands, touches it to his forehead, then slides it into his shirt. He touches his chest, bows his head, and says real soft that second of the Creek words I know. Muto. He turns back, picks up a small stick. He uses it to lightly touch the remaining items exposed to view. Canteen, spare shirt, extra pair of well-worn cotton socks, my extra drawers. Mom's forlorn comb, just about all my belongings. Possum picks up the comb. Won't need this now, will you? He drops it back among my pitiful possessions. That, he says, speaking each word slowly, is all? Yup. Left everything else back home? Nope, I say. Then I add, just to make it clear, no back home. No back home, Possum says. Had a farm. Bank took it? I nod. Possum touches each of my possessions a second time with his stick. There's nothing else you own? Just this. I take out my jackknife, the French war medal, the shiny quarter Miss Euler gave me, and another 12 coins. The 50 cents the cowboy gave me, plus a few I've picked up off the ground as we traveled. I've always kept my eye out for the glint of metal as Pop and I have trudged along. Possum gently taps the metal with his stick. Your Pop win this? I shake my head. Somebody else? He give it to you? A nod is all that's needed. I'm guessing you did something for whoever that was. You could say that. That medal, he says, you need to keep safe. Not from the other boys, mind you. We don't abide no sneak thieves. Especially in our gang, which is all made up of straight shooters. It's more from some of those who run this place. Leave something like this around, it'll vanish like snow on a sunny day. Possum tugs the shoulder of my shirt. Now, far as the clothes you got, those, they'll just throw away, he chuckles. No big loss there. Far as personals go, I reckon that medal's the only thing you'd mourn the missing of. He looks back toward Building 1. I heard about a bunch of Navajos was shipped here years back. Every one of them arrived wearing turquoise and silver jewelry. That got snatched away as soon as they got here. Just to keep it safe, they were told. It was put into the strong box in the office of Mr. J.I. Takem, superintendent before Morrell got here. That jewelry of theirs surely was safe, so safe those Navajo boys and girls never saw none of it again. But Superintendent Takem got him some fine new suits and a brand new Model A Ford he drove off in when he left here. Possum straightens up and jerks his head off to the left. Follow me. I put my things back into my pockets in my pack. We walk behind the building 100 yards till we get to a hedgerow. You'll have your own locker at the foot of your bed, Possum says. Those 2 books of yours, they'll be fine in there. But you want to keep that medal safe. He ducks through the hedgerow and slides down a rope. I follow close behind. Another 100 yards ahead is a small grove. Possum heads straight to the biggest tree at the far end, an old live oak with wide, spreading branches. Okay at climbing. Yup. Possum swings up into the tree. He hops from one limb to another. Agile is the animal he's nicknamed for. I follow close behind, just a hair slower but no less sure of myself. I practically lived in a tree like this back on our farm. It feels good to be off the ground, pulling myself up, branch after branch. Almost as good as being atop a fast freight. Possum stops short at the top, the highest branch is still some 30 feet above us. Here, he says, tapping in a regular slab of bark that's about a foot wide and 2 feet high. Leaning closer, I see that it's been fastened to the oak with an old hinge so rusty that it's lost its shine. It looks as much a part of the tree as that piece of bark. Possum sticks 2 of his fingers under the side opposite the hinge and pries. The slab swings open. It's a door, cleverly made to blend in. That's interesting, but what's more fascinating is what's inside. The cavity isn't quite large enough for a person to fit in, but it's plenty big to hold a passel of interesting-looking objects. Different shapes and sizes. All are wrapped in leather or cloth. Possum's personal hidey hole, he says, a pride in his voice. Wow, I reply. Possum grins. Just what I said when I found this here hollow. Took me a day to make my door just so. Not that the making was all that hard. I could only work on it when the shop teacher wasn't looking. He flicks an index finger against the hinge. That was in the blacksmith's barrel of scrap to be melted down. He grabs a branch over his head with one hand. His long fingers wrap all the way around it. He lifts his feet off the branch. We're on, and he dangles there, looking even more like a clothes-wearing version of American marsupial. Jaybird, he drawls, you're the first I've showed this to. Why, I ask. Possum swings back and forth, reaching up his other hand to scratch his chin. Well, you appear to be a man who can keep a secret. He lets go, dropping back down so lightly that the branch we're on hardly moves. Being dead honest, he says, it's on account of something my grandpa Big Rabbit said. Sometimes you can recognize a friend on first sight. Came to mind when I first seen you and your old man in the stands. He spits on his right palm and holds it out. Friends, he says. I spit on my own right palm. We slap our palms together and shake on it. Okay, Possum says, turning back toward the hollow in the tree. Let me show you some of what we got here. He pulls out a long object, rolled up in cloth with string tied around it, even before he finishes unwrapping it. I know what it is, an unstrung bow. Osage orange, he says, holding it out to me. Best wood to make a bow. I hold it in my left hand. Feeling how well it fits there, I hand it back. You know how to use a bow? Not really. That's okay, you'll learn. Got me plenty of arrows in here. Come next weekend, we can string it up and I'll show you how. He wraps the bow back up and slides it back into its place. The next thing he brings out is almost the shape of the bow, but a little bulkier. It's wrapped not in cloth, but leather. Smoke tanned this myself, Possum says as he rolls open the soft, light-colored hide. Best to keep deerskin around it. Won't never rust. Grandpa Rabbit once found a musket inside a hollow tree outside Okmulgee. Must have been stashed there around the time of the trail, when our folks got sent to the Indian Territory from Mississippi. The stock was eaten away, but the barrel was as shiny as when it got put in there a century ago. He hands me the gun. Winchester, he says, Model 51 Imperial. Single shot, 22, made in 1919. Bolt action, I say, opening the breech to check that it's unloaded. I close it and sight down the barrel at a fox squirrel that's poked its head out from behind the trunk of the hickory tree 50 yards away. Then I hand the gun back. Okay, Possum says. Grandpa, Big Rabbit said you can tell a lot about a man from how he handles a gun even before he shoots it. I nod. His grandpa must be a lot like Pop. Treat every gun as loaded, I say. Words I've heard my father say 100 times. Possum nods as he gently rewraps his rifle. Betsy here, he says, is one fine squirrel gun. You like squirrel stew with gravy? I nod my head, feeling my mouth water as I do so. It's mid-morning and I've yet to put food in my belly. My empty stomach chooses that moment to growl loudly. Possum squints his eyes at me. You eat anything today? I shake my head, a little embarrassed at how loudly my stomach voiced its disapproval about being neglected. Here, he says, holding out a greasy paper bag he's lifted from a tight-lidded tin box from his hidey hole. I open the bag, and the scent that rises makes my mouth water even more. Jerky, he says. Me and the gang made it from some beef we liberated from the kitchen. Take a piece. Heck, take 2 or 3. I do just that, holding 2 of the leathery chunks of cured meat in my left hand. I lift the third piece to my mouth, tear off a bite with my side teeth, and start chewing. It's tough, but tasty, smoky, and a little sweet. I swallow and take another bite. We added some brown sugar, Possum says. Good, isn't it? I nod. Mutu, I say, then keep eating. I'm happy being fed like this, but something Possum just said is giving me pause. 2 words. The gang. That's the second time he's mentioned them. Who are they? And what are they going to think of me? Getting along with just Possum seems like something I might be able to do, but with a bunch of other boys, all of them strangers. Now this, Possum says, putting away the jerky and taking out yet another cloth-wrapped item from the hollow, is what we come here for. What he discloses is a cedar box, not much larger than a book. He opens it and holds it out so I can see the treasures he's placed inside it and names as he takes each one out and then replaces it. One $18.99 silver dollar, my grandpa's gold watch, this arrowhead I found, wing feather from a red-tailed hawk, and best of all, this here Cherokee rose. He hands me the last thing he's named. It's not really a rose, though. It sort of looks like one. It's a piece of red sandy stone. Ever seen one before? You know the story? I shake my head. You know how us civilized tribes got forced out of the South? I nod. Of course you do. Story is that near the end of the trail, the people's feet were all bloody from the walking. And as they walked along this one part of the Arkansas River, every drop of blood they lost turned into one of these. So they called them Cherokee roses. And you can find them to this day along that stretch of river. As he speaks those words, it starts to happen. I'm walking along that river, looking down at my feet, except they're not my own. They're too big to be mine. They're aching from all the endless miles of walking, miles that wore out my shoes. Now, even though it's cold, they're just wrapped in rags. Where the rags don't cover them are cuts and scars. But I am not paying much mind to myself. I'm too concerned about the old man next to me. I'm helping him along because he's so weak. His own rag-wrapped brown feet are leaving bloody footprints. He's bent over, his long white hair falling across his face as he limps along. He turns to talk to me, and even the words he speaks are not in English. Somehow I understand. Leave me, grandson, he says. I am done. No, I say, picking him up. You carried me when I was little. Now I will carry you. I blink my eyes, and that vision is gone. What I see instead is Possum reaching out to take the Cherokee rose from my palm. He returns the stone to the box, slides down so he is sitting, leaning back against the tree trunk. Then we just sit there for a time, neither of us speaking. He looks at me, his head to one side as if he knows something just happened. But I don't say anything about what I just experienced, and he doesn't ask. You want, he finally says, holding out the open box. You can use this here for safekeeping. I nod. There's no better place I can think of than in the company of that red stone. I hand him my France Victory Medal.